Excellencies, the Vice Presidents, Honorable Minister, Honorable MPs, good afternoon. We're going to start this General Assembly. There are 75 MPs here, so we have the quorum. Here is the agenda. It's a presentation by the Foreign Minister about Rwanda's cooperation with the regional neighbors. Before we start, is there any MP who has something to share from their constituencies? I don't see anybody. So let me remind you that we have asked His Excellency the Foreign Minister to present the situation with regards to Rwanda's relations with neighboring countries. It's not about oversight, it's about informing the parliament about the government's action. So what we want to know is for him to tell the parliament the state of our relationship with neighboring countries, especially the situation with the DRC, so we can fully understand the prevailing situation, what's been done, the Nairobi Initiative, the Rwanda process, the obstacles in implementing those processes, and within the cooperation between organs, different institutions of our country, this will allow to know how to contribute as parliament to our country's diplomacy. So without further ado, Minister, over to you. Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, Vice Presidents, Honorable MPs, I thank you for having taken this time to let us come here to have a conversation with you and exchange ideas about Rwanda's relations with our neighboring countries. Overall, Rwanda's relationship with neighboring countries is good overall. So I will give you an overview about each country. But of course, I will emphasize where there are problems, which means I will be talking about the issues with the DRC. I'll start with Burundi. Our relationship with Burundi is good. There was a time, well, since 2015, there have been problems. In 2015, there was an attempt, there was a coup attempt. That's when the problems started between Rwanda and Burundi. And as you remember, that's when many refugees came into Rwanda, but gradually the relationship was restored. And today we have a good relationship. I personally led a delegation to Burundi to the Independence Day of Burundi last year. Other envoys went to Burundi as well in different conferences and meetings. And other meetings were organized at different times between provincial leaders and district leaders across the border. So this testifies to the improvement in relations with Burundi. The border has been opened. It was closed during the COVID pandemic, but now the border with Burundi is open. So gradually, our relationship with Burundi has been restored, and I think the remaining issues uh, are in the process of being resolved. But we were happy with the situation with that relationship. Uganda, there were problems. We discussed this on many occasions, and today that relationship has been restored. Gatuna border has reopened. The traffic of goods has resumed. People come and go. So we're going to have a 15th summit, cooperation summit in March this year between Rwanda and Uganda. And this means that our relationship has been restored. The Ugandan foreign minister came here on an official visit. We had talks and we decided that the cooperation summit between Rwanda and Uganda will be held in March this year. There's another meeting, a technical meeting was organized in Kampala. There's no problem with Tanzania. We've enjoyed good relationship for many years. But we had an opportunity to have a cooperation meeting between the two countries. We signed new protocols, adding to existing ones. New cooperations, new protocols were about security and defense. So we signed those protocols, which means that there's a good relationship. Uh, there was another meeting to evaluate the implementation of what we had agreed upon. Then the next session summit will be organized in Rwanda, but Kenya and South Sudan, I'm talking about East African community countries, we have good relationships. There was no problem at all. So it's a good relationship of cooperation and partnership. And as I said, with the Democratic Republic of Congo, there's been problems, and today the relationship is very poor. The problem started in late 2021 when the in Ruchuru zone in DRC, fighting resumed between M23. Let me reiterate that that armed group existed even before then. It was defeated in 2013 when it got defeated by a military force that was called Intervention Brigade in collaboration with the Congo. The M23 was defeated. Some elements fled to Rwanda and others fled to Uganda. Those who fled to Rwanda were disarmed. They were put in a camp far from the border, and the weapons were returned to the Democratic Republic of Congo's government. After that, there were talks. Rwandan government helped, it assisted those in Rwanda, held talks with the DRC officials and signed an agreement in 2019. That agreement was supposed to pave the way for their return back home. But that agreement, like many others, was never implemented. And there also came a time when their representative went to Kinshasa getting ready to implement the agreement. And they spent a long time with nobody wanting to ready to talk with them. And in 2021, fighting resumed. And those who started the fighting, namely this M23, but they were not coming from Rwanda. But since then, the DRC continued to accuse Rwanda, saying that this is Rwanda invading us. So, we used to talk, we had good cooperation. There were agreements also between both countries to help each other fighting the FDLR and the FDLR armed group, which is still in the DRC, and other rebel groups. You have FDLR, Rudurunana, FLN, and others, but they are all connected to the FDLR. And we kept telling them that those people did not attack from our country. Those who fled and came to Rwanda are still there. We can show them where they are. But they didn't want to listen. They kept, the media kept reinforcing that version. The politicians did the same. They said, we're going to fight them and send them back where they came from, which is Rwanda. That's what they're saying. But visibly, those who had fled to Rwanda were still in Rwanda. And that's when the relationship deteriorated to what it is today. Allow me to go back to how M23 came to be. As you know, in our history, there was colonialism. And colonialism decided arbitrarily to draw the borders that we have today. And some Rwandans found themselves outside of Rwanda as we know it today. Part of what used to be Rwanda is now in both Kivu regions. This was decided in Brussels, Belgium, in February in 1910. Germany, Belgium, Burundi, and Tanzania and the Congo were there. And the resolutions in May 1910, each colonialist kept the territory they wanted. But consequently, some Rwandans, some Kinyarwanda-speaking people found themselves in the new territory called Congo. Others remained in the Rwanda as we know it today. So, apart from those borders, under colonialism, there are many Rwandans who were taken forcefully to Rwanda. They were taken by the Belgians to do farm work and to work in the mines. And between 1959 and 1973, another wave of Rwandans fled to different countries, including the Congo, because of violence that was here in the country. Those who left between 1959 and 1973, many of them returned back home after the genocide against the Tutsis stopped. And the others who had gone to the Congo and those who found themselves in what became or what was Congo within the borders kept being persecuted at different times in that country. There would come a time, and then they would say, these are not true Congolese, and they were targeted, and including at election times. The genocide against Tutsis, when it stopped, as you remember, the ex-FAR and Interahamwe, many of them, fled to the Congo, and they took hostage many Rwandans. They went to the Congo, and the then Zaire leaders did not disarm them or settle them far from the border according to international law, but they settled 15 kilometers from the border. And between 1994 and 1995, the ex-FAR and Interahamwe increased their military operations within the refugee camps in eastern Congo. They started training inside the camps, and then the camps became military barracks, and this became a concern for the UNHCR, and Rwanda had kept expressing its concern, but the international community kept quiet about it. And you remember the attacks by the Interahamwe militia and the ex-FAR early 1996. The former Army Chief of Staff, General Augustin Bizimungu, he found a territory in Rutshuru where he installed his base, and he started uprooting the Tutsi Congolese who spoke Kinyarwanda. They were targeted. They had carried out the genocide here, and they fled to the Congo with the same ideology, spread it, and started killing Congolese of Tutsi ethnic group. So in 1996, the first Congolese who spoke Kinyarwanda started fleeing to Rwanda. I want to reiterate that the anti-Tutsi hatred, the Tutsis who speak Kinyarwanda, the Human Rights Report of 1993 had revealed that in the then Zaire, there were armed militia groups who formed what they called Mai Mai. Back then, those armed militia groups were supported by some military and political leaders in that country. All those groups attacked Kinyarwanda-speaking people in that eastern Congo. Those were Congolese, the Tutsis, but Congolese. But the Mai Mai back then targeted Rwandans in general. Many were killed, others fled, but the leaders of the then Zaire did not do anything to protect its citizens. And because Interahamwe and ex-FAR had fled to Congo in large numbers, the genocide ideology and division ideology took another level in that part of the country. They kept instilling in others that the enemy is not everybody who speaks Kinyarwanda, but it's a Tutsi who speaks Kinyarwanda. So Interahamwe and ex-FAR together continued to hunt down and expel the Tutsis in the Congo. All this led to different ways of trying to protect themselves for those who were targeted. Those who had been abandoned by their own government started forming their own groups for self-defense because the government did not protect them. But back then, the ex-FAR and Interahamwe formed another armed group called ALIR with a political wing called POLIR, the Party for the Liberation of Rwanda, and with its military wing, Army for the Liberation of Rwanda. It keeps changing names. And once it was listed as a terrorist organization, they changed the name and they became FDLR. And they broke down into different factions, RUD, RUNANA, and FLN, as you've been hearing. But all those stemmed from ALIR that kept changing names and ways of operating. This also led to the creation of other armed groups aimed at protecting themselves. They were fighting, protecting themselves from the FDLR because their government did not want to do anything to help them. That's when what was called RCD was created in December 2006, and some RCD elements that they broke into two factions, and then it formed another group that they called CNDP that was fighting against the FDLR that were attacking Kinyarwanda-speaking Congolese. In March 2009, this is where I wanted to talk to go. The M23. M23 means March 23. M stands for March. It was formed on 23rd March 2009. Actually, it's not when it was formed. There was an agreement. The Congolese army integrated CNDP military elements, including Bosco Ntaganda, who's now in Lahaye. The agreement said that the CNDP was legally accepted in the Congo. So they agreed to repatriate the refugees who had been expelled by the FDLR, but the Congolese government did not do it, did not repatriate the refugees. It kept supporting the FDLR, and they kept going on a killing spree. And the CNDP then started what they call M23 movement, or March 23, which was born following the fact that the March 23rd agreement was not implemented. So in 2013, that movement was defeated by the intervention brigade from MONUSCO, with Malawian, Tanzanian, and South African soldiers together with the DRC. Like I said, some of them fled here, others to Uganda. But those here were disarmed, they were sent in a camp, and in late 2021, the DRC government kept accusing Rwanda, saying that those who invaded the Congo were coming from the Rwanda. Those who were fighting were trying to sending them to Rwanda, and what the objective was that they wanted to attract Rwanda into that war. But what they wanted by trying to bring Rwanda into that war, it's because the DRC with its army fights alongside FDLR militia. They arm that armed group, they give them weapons and ammunition until today. So that was intended to attract and bring Rwanda into that war because the DRC had their own reasons. But we relentlessly told them that these people did not come from Rwanda. They are not being helped by Rwanda. And there is a way to verify what we were saying. But the DRC government did not want to listen. They kept accusing us. Let me tell you that this FDLR that we're talking about, FDLR operates from inside the eastern DRC. Let me remind you that in October 2019, there was an attack by the FDLR in the north of Rwanda, in Kinigi area, and Rwandans were killed. Some of the attackers were killed, those who survived went back in DRC. One of the commanders, as you've heard recently, he was killed on the battlefront in Ruchuru recently. But you remember that attack. I just wanted to remind you of that, because when we say that the FDLR fights alongside FRDC, this is not something that we make up. Well, we have evidence of that, because in that October 2019 attack, Rud Urunana faction, which stems from FDLR, attacked in Kinigi, and they killed 15 people, and others were injured, and property was damaged. And the M23 kept fighting with the FRDC, and the allegations that Rwanda was supporting M23 kept going, even though we gave them evidence that we have nothing to do with that war, but they refused. And on 13 March last year, the FRDC, together with FDLR, shelled on the Rwandan territory in Kinigi. Fortunately, nobody was killed. And we told them, what are you doing? What is this? And they said they were fighting and they were trying to push the M23 forces back where they came from. And we say, but where did they come from? Since we know they did not go attack from Rwanda. So we left it there at that. And nobody had been killed. But we informed their appropriate organs so they could see what had happened. And on 23 May, they attacked again, they shelled again, and the people were injured, and there was property damage. And on 10 June, same year, they did it again. And this tells you how these are actions that the DRC government did trying to bring Rwanda into that war. We only them know why they wanted to do that. But there's more. Over the last 3 months, fighter jets from the Congo invaded Rwanda's airspace 3 times. The most recent, when it happened, the armed forces did something about that. So they opened fire on that fighter jet. It was damaged, but managed to go back to Congo. I'm telling you all this, showing you how the Congo has been provoking us, trying to bring Rwanda into that war. The region was not idle. So there was a Nairobi summit, there was a Rwanda summit. I'm not going to mention each and every meeting that was organized. I will talk about what was agreed upon in Nairobi. There was a communique with the resolutions that said it was requested that the DRC holds talks with armed groups in the eastern DRC. You see, there's 130 armed groups in eastern DRC. Some formed with the Congolese, others with foreign groups, including FDLR, Udurunana, FLN, and others with Red Tabara, with Burundians, in the far north in Ituri. So it's a battleground with many armed militia groups involved. So it was decided that Congo should talk with Congolese armed groups. In those Congolese armed groups, the M23 was included because those are Congolese people. And armed groups whose soldiers are foreigners, they were requested to disarm and go back where they had come from. And then those countries where they had come from would analyze the situation and see how they can integrate them. There's a normal procedure. We have a commission for that. We have Mutobo Demobilization Center. You know how we do it. We've been doing this for years. So that's how it was decided by the DRC. Instead of implementing that, they decided to exclude the M23. They said M23 was a terrorist group. They're the ones who declared M23 a terrorist group, to exclude them from that process. So they staged something and invited the rest of some of those groups. It became like something that really was not serious. There are many armed groups, but they invited a few. Those were not talks. They just wanted something to be organized to pretend that they had implemented what the heads of states had decided. So that happened once, twice. There were meetings, but in the DRC, in the eastern DRC, nothing changed. Fighting continued, and the DRC army kept collaborating with the FDLR, helping them with military training, giving them weapons, ammunition, and they continued fighting, especially fighting the M23. There was other meetings in Rwanda. The meetings in Rwanda were aimed at restoring the relationship between Rwanda and the DRC. However, since the relationship had been damaged by the actions of the armed groups, including M23, FDLR, we had to come back to those issues. So it became inevitable to merge Nairobi and Rwanda, and there was a communique of 23rd November last year. It was about the following. One, ceasefire and stop the M23's attacks on FRDC and MONUSCO. There was a deadline, an ultimatum. It was decided that the communique by the Rwanda meetings be respected, those from 21st April and 24th June. That's was called the Nairobi process. And the Rwanda roadmap of 7th July 2022, and the special summit of chiefs of staff in Bujumbura in November 2022. So I'm giving you this to show you that there's been a long process, but I want to focus on this. There are different parts to the Rwanda process, including that M23 and FRDC ceasefire, and then M23 would withdraw from its positions. And there are positions that they were allowed to keep based on the Bujumbura meeting from November 2022. That was decided. It's one of the decisions. But there were other decisions as well, including about the FDLR, that they had to disarm, and the Nairobi resolutions that they should go back home is included. There was an issue with the Congolese refugees, about 75,000 who are here in Rwanda, and others are in Rwanda and in Kenya. Their problem was to be resolved, and they would go back home in the DRC. And all this is included. He had a timeline for it to be implemented, and there was a group that was put in place to monitor the implementation. And if I reiterate the Rwanda communique in 23rd November 2022, that's because today, when you hear what the DRC says and the international community gets involved and supports it, it's said that the accords are not respected because the M23 did not withdraw as planned. They never say a thing about the rest, the FDLR, other armed groups, other foreign armed groups, the refugee question, the political talks, and all this is part of the communique. And today, people just say the M23 did not respect the agreement. But with that communique, one thing that has started being implemented, not fully, it started, is the fact that it's that M23 withdrew. It withdrew from some positions, and they were occupied by the East African Community Force, which force comes from the Nairobi process, because it said the armed group that will refuse to disarm or to withdraw or to participate in political talks, the political talks will be with the armed groups formed by Congolese people, but other armed groups of foreign soldiers were to go back where they come from. But the communique was clear. Those who refuse to implement what was said, what the heads of states had said, then there would be an East African force to fight those armed groups. And today, they say the Rwanda agreement was not implemented, that M23 did not withdraw. But the fact is, M23 withdrew from its positions, and they gave a timeline for the rest of their positions. And as they withdraw, the East African force occupies those very positions left by the M23 to avoid proximity between M23 and the FARDC. And with the Rwanda communique, let me repeat it. Today, if there's only one thing that started being implemented, it's that the M23 has started withdrawing. It has started, it's not completed. The rest, the FDLR, other armed groups, foreign armed groups, the refugees, not even a single communique saying the refugees, Congolese refugees who are in Rwanda, Uganda, Kenya, or Burundi, that there's a plan to go and visit and organize a census, know who they are, in the process of taking them back home. No communique from the DRC government, nothing from the UN, from MONUSCO, Nothing, not even a communique about that disarmament so that those people should go where they came from. The political talks, like I said, I've told you what happened, but nobody is saying anything about that. The Rwanda communique, it's like it was only about the only one thing about the M23. That's a problem. Here is one thing I should tell you too. When the DRC, wherever they went around the world, the president himself, the ministers, they kept accusing Rwanda, and the international community accepted it for different reasons. Some the interests in some cases, others just copying what the others were doing just to look like everyone else. They started issuing communique condemning Rwanda, saying that Rwanda helped invade the DRC by supporting the M23. And if you have been following the history, and obviously you know what's going on, you know most of this. If anything, there's anything who ought to be answering, the first person would be the one who played a role in drawing those borders. And it's the one who forcefully took Rwandans into what became to become the Congo. It was maybe it was called Congo or Zaire, but mostly it was called Congo back then. It was called Belgian Congo. So those who did that are the ones who should be answering questions. And they are the ones who should be doing, we made mistakes and they resulted into this crisis today. There are others who were here during the genocide against Tutsis, who played a role in helping the Interahamwe militia and the ex-FAR and the FAR to flee to the Congo and reorganize from within the camps so they could come back and attack Rwanda, cause insecurity in Rwanda. And all those are just accusing Rwanda. So where are they? They should be answering the questions for what they did, whose consequences resulted into what we see today. But today they are giving lessons and naming the culprits, naming those who should be held responsible. So you, the parliament, should help us in making those people understand that they should be humble. They should look back and go back in history and acknowledge their own responsibility in all this. But instead of designating those who should be held responsible, that should not be the case. Another concerning thing is that these Congolese refugees who speak Kinyarwanda, especially in the Tutsis, that's how they fled their country 20 years ago. We've been saying this. And like I said, nobody seems to be concerned with this. What some say is that they come and pick a few individuals, take them to some countries. They don't take all of them. They pick a few individuals. But all these are problems. These are Congolese citizens. What should be done is to help them enjoy their right to their citizenship and go back home. But taking a few to Canada, to the US, Australia, what have you, that's not a solution to the problem in that country and in this region. And another problem is, you've seen what's said in the Congo There's hate speech and killings. They kill people because they are Tutsis, Congolese Tutsis. I'm not going to explain anything. They are on social media. They take pictures of themselves killing people, eating their bodies, their body parts. And those who keep saying that Rwanda sent its soldiers in the Congo, they should be sending their soldiers to protect these people who are being targeted, being killed, and dehumanized. Dehumanized by Congolese soldiers and the FDLR and other forces. But you could say, well, the MONUSCO is there. Yes, it's been there since 20 years. And the interventional brigade, which defeated M23 in 2013, is there. They were supposed to fight armed groups, including the FDLR. In 2013, when M23 was defeated, FDLR reorganized. It was not worried at all. But those forces were still there. They're still there today. As you've heard in the DRC, the accusations are endless, but people are being killed, and then they say, well, the Congolese have been killed. But, well, nobody should be killed. Nobody should be killed, normally. These Congolese Tutsis are being persecuted. It's on social media. They get killed. And we've received about 3,000 last month. 3,000 last month while fleeing those killings. But nobody cares on the international level. Nobody cares. The United Nations has the genocide prevention policy. They issued a communique. They had a department against the genocide. They issued a communique that people are being targeted because of their ethnic group, their ethnicity. But if you look at that communique and you see what happened or followed, you see nobody reacting when they see what happened. Even after the communique, nobody's saying anything. There are armed groups, including Codeco, who are killing people because of people's ethnic group. They are killing Hema people. ADF is killing others. And it has become almost normal. Nobody says a thing about that internationally. There's nobody condemning that. Only very few people are saying that this is wrong. And when people talk about the genocide and you look at what's being done in that part of the country, targeting one ethnicity, then I don't know, we don't know what the international community, what the world is waiting for to condemn this and to solve this crisis once and for all. Let me repeat this. The DRC army still collaborates with armed groups in the eastern DRC, as it's always been. And now it's becoming more serious. FRDC and FDLR are attacked together. They're fighting the M23 together, though they keep saying that they will go all the way to Rwanda. I've told you this. I've told you what happened recently. I've mentioned these fighter jets from the Congo invading Rwanda's airspace. You've seen this recently, that there are mercenaries fighting for the DRC. They came to Goma. We hear there are 300 of them. But let me reiterate that there's a convention. Back then it was called the OAU, the Organization of African Unity. Before it was called the African Union. The convention that was said on July 3rd, 1977. That convention was said, had decided to do away with mercenaries in Africa. Each country is bound by that convention. There should not be mercenaries in broad daylight, and nobody is condemning that because we have that agreement in the African Union. But we see that openly there are mercenaries in that part of the country. And that is all intended to ultimately attack Rwanda. You've heard the various speeches by the Congolese president. You've read the communique by the foreign minister recently, almost saying clearly that the Luanda and Nairobi agreements, they're no longer part of those processes, saying that now it's they're going to go for an all-out war. And this is the situation. And I wanted to talk about the situation with the relationship between Rwanda and the DRC. It's in bad shape, but there is a way, a regional way to try to solve this. When we went to Rwanda on 23rd November 2022, when there was that communique that I've mentioned earlier, before we even started the meeting, there was another communique that was issued from a powerful country saying M23 is supported by Rwanda. And they said that support needs to stop. That was a way to sabotage what the region was doing. There are others who followed suit, but all of them should keep quiet. They should be ashamed of the history they participated in. They should humbly come and contribute to finding a solution to the problem they caused. So as Rwanda, the Rwandan government, that's where we stand. We agree with the various processes, and we are ready to contribute to implementing that so the security can be restored in our region, and for the relationship between us and DRC to be restored, and for the Congolese refugees who are here to enjoy the full rights and go back home, and their security be guaranteed. And for these foreign armed groups in the DRC, who are in the eastern DRC since more than 20 years and collaborating with the FRDC, it has to stop. It has to stop. This has taken too long. There's been many agreements. The DRC government, it has one thing in particular of signing an agreement and forgetting about that immediately. They signed accords with M23 and in DC, Nairobi, Addis, and Nairobi, here in Kampala, but they never implemented any single thing. So, well, I think I'm repeating this. I think we have the will to do something, but we also have to be ready. We don't know what the others are planning. If necessary, our security, our sovereignty will be protected as it should be. If you hear the discourse, when they talk about Congo's sovereignty, when they talk about, when they say that its land should not be violated, it sounds like it's the only country that has a territory that needs to be sovereign. When you want that to be respected, you ought to respect others too. So the Rwanda's sovereignty, its inviolability of its territory has to be respected by everyone. And at the same time, we need to be ready should it be necessary. I will stop here, Honorable Speaker. If there are questions, I will probably be able to give more details. Thank you. We thank you, Honorable Minister, for your presentation about relationships between Rwanda and the neighboring countries, which is in good shape for other countries but the Congo, as you've explained. You've clarified the root causes of the problem between the DRC and Rwanda. And we thank you, Honorable Minister, for having clarified what Rwanda is doing to protect her sovereignty and security and for peace to be restored in the country. Some members of parliament want to ask questions. We have 17 people who want to ask questions. The number is still increasing. 18. Honorable Nizeyimana Barikana.
Depite Mukabalisa Germaine, Depite Muhongayire, Depite Ruhakana, Depite Rukurwabyoma, Depite Bugingo, Depite Murekatete, Depite Rwaka, Depite Begumisa, Depite Mukamana Elizabeth, Depite Tengera, Vice President Harerimana Musa Fazil, Depite Mutesi. Ijambo ni rya Depite Nizeyimana.
Ndabashimye kwa Speaker.
Over to you, Honorable Nizeyimana. Thank you, Speaker. As you said, FDLR is in the DRC. Those are elements who conducted the genocide against the Tutsis in 1994. And their ideology is to kill every Tutsi. FDLR and FRDC are visibly one and the same army. FDLR is powerful within the Congolese army. It appoints leaders as well. It takes taxes in Eastern DRC. And they target the Congolese Tutsis. There's hate speech against Tutsis, Congolese of Tutsi descent. The MPs recently booed their colleague because they said he's Tutsi. So that hatred led to FDLR and FRDC to killing Tutsis publicly. And the Congolese started killing Tutsis. The minister has explained this. Honorable Speaker, I want to ask a few questions. What do you think makes the international organizations that they don't condemn the killing of Tutsis, which is a genocide? To me, this is how it happened in Rwanda. The international organizations could see everything, but they did not do anything. What is Rwanda doing to rally the international community to come to the rescue of those Congolese being targeted? So what can be done to give a warning to Congo for its collaboration with the FDLR? What can Rwanda do to stop the killing of Tutsis in the Congo? FRDC and the FDLR provocation, attacking the territory, flying their aircraft in Rwanda, invading Rwandan space. How long will this go on? Congo recently expelled our ambassador. So what is Rwanda's reaction? What will we do? There are refugees, Congolese refugees who are here. Does the Congo have any talks with Rwanda about their repatriation? Can there be a way to capture the parts, those territories that were taken away by the colonialists when they drew these borders? Over to you, Honorable Barikana. Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I thank the Minister for the explanation he's given us. And I also thank our government for what it has done so far and for its behavior during this crisis. With the ICGLR meetings, our colleagues from the Congo, they always say that Rwanda is the one that's been invading the Congo. But the explanations that the minister gave us are clear. The agreements signed before the different mediators, nobody cares. Nobody mentioned a word about that. During those meetings with our colleagues, we tried to explain based on these processes that were signed by thanks to the mediation, but they don't want to hear anything. So one would wonder why. My question is, the problem between the DRC and M23 is always attributed to Rwanda. The minister has explained it. What is the root cause of all this, Your Excellency, Madam Speaker? But it's clear, the truth is clear, but the Congolese government doesn't want to understand. So what is the reason why they don't want to accept that Congolese, the Tutsis? Thank you, Madam Speaker. Thank you, Speaker. I thank the Minister. Honorable Speaker, I thank our country for how she's behaved during this crisis, in spite of provocation by our neighbor. And I thank our army. They did not destroy that fighter jet, but what they did was to give them a warning, because Rwanda should not be intimidated and violated like that. So the killing against Kinyarwanda-speaking Congolese, the Tutsis, on 9th December 1948, after World War II, the international community signed a treaty and they committed to that says that there would be no genocide ever again. And in 1994 in our country, it happened again. There was a genocide against Tutsis. more than 1 million Tutsis were killed. So this is a continuity playing out in the DRC. The Tutsi is being killed on a daily basis. The minister has said this. They're being killed beyond what most people understand. Now, the Congo is part of the EAC. What is the region doing? So should we just sit down, sit by and look? What is the UN Security Council doing? Shouldn't be doing our best to tell the world that something should be done? People are being killed and everybody else is watching. The minister mentioned the different processes that were never implemented. So what do we do? What do we do to help those people? Well, the M23 are our soldiers. They should be fighting against the soldiers. But how can those populations be protected? People should be speaking out against this. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Speaker. I thank the minister for his presentation about the relationship between Rwanda and neighboring countries. And as it said, neighbors need each other. Here is my question. Though the minister has talked about that, but I'd like more explanations. Even the M23 soldiers attacked from Uganda, not from Rwanda. Now, why is Rwanda still accused as their launching zone and not Uganda? Those who fled to Rwanda, as you said, are still here in Rwanda. They didn't leave Rwanda. Why does Congo accuse Rwanda and not Uganda? When the borders were drawn, it wasn't unfair only in Congo. It happened in other countries, even in our region. But the Rwandans who were in those territories, they became citizens of those countries. This is how it should be, even in the Congo. Why can't the Congo copy what the others did? Why is it doing it differently? Now, have you ever given them those examples? We have examples. There are many who carry similar names, carry our names. They're in leadership positions as well in neighboring countries. Maybe you could give those examples next time so the Kinyarwanda speaking people can stay in their home just like they live in the Congo, Burundi, or Tanzania. And about the Sukhoi 25 fighter jet that invaded our airspace. It invaded our airspace. The Congolese representatives said on BBC that it could take a turn in Rwanda. It's not unusual. That's what they said. But are there any agreements with the Congo that allow them to take a turn in the Congo in their fighter jet? And that would be normal? And they said they're going to retaliate very soon. What will you do? What will we do? So What do you say to that? I mean, thank you very much. Over to you, Honorable Hindura.
nanjye ndashima cyane nyakubahwa minisita n'ibyo guverinoma ikora muri rusange kuri iki kibazo.
I thank the minister. I have a question. Is it clearly known that the FDLR is largely formed by those who killed Tutsis here in 1994, but the FRDC supports them in many ways, militarily, politically, in business? FDLR has been in the Congo all these years. How come it's not uprooted once and for all? Look at the partnership between FDLR and DRC. The DRC president recently said we need to help Rwandans to attack in Rwanda and remove Kigali regime. He meant the FDLR. Well, it's his fantasy, of course, but what does the UN do about that? When a president clearly admits that he collaborates with a terrorist organization. And now the minister has taken us back in history. The DRC has its borders. It shares borders with 9 countries. But along those borders, there are people who speak a language that is spoken across the border. Same here. The question is, why do they target Kenya-Rwanda speaking people? But the rest, the borders, the rest, the other countries. Well, you talk with the Congolese people, and when he mentions his grandfather, he finds himself his roots in a neighboring country. So why Rwanda? How will this end? DRC should not know that speaking Kenya-Rwanda does not mean you're Rwandan. You speak French, it doesn't make you French. You speak English, it doesn't make you British. I want to ask the government or the minister, so what can we do as a parliament in parliamentary and diplomacy? What should we do to play a role in finding a solution to this crisis? Even though they say that Rwanda supports M23, I think Rwanda should do something clearly, because the First and Second Republic contributed to installing, creating anti-Tutsi hatred in the Congo. If you look at the 10-franc note in Belgian Congo in 1941, you see Rwandan traditional dancers. And you know, Rwanda, the Inore is exclusively a Rwandan thing. It's a Rwandan dance. So it's on this the currency that was being used in the 1940s in that country. So
murakoze ijambo ni irya Depite Mussolini.
over to Honorable Mussolini. Thank you, Madam Speaker. I thank the Minister, the Foreign Minister, for his presentation. I also want to thank the President of the Republic and our army at the borders for protecting Rwandans. And they are protecting Rwandans, and they are guaranteeing their safety, especially in Rubavu district, and we support him. Honorable Speaker, when we say this, it's very painful. On 15th November 1884, 19 European countries and the United States sat down and split Africa into different pieces that they shared. Everybody took his share, their share. In 1910, those who were in this region, they divided this region into pieces, as the minister said. Some people found themselves in a different country from then on, but they were in their home. But what's happened between Rwanda and the Kivu in the Congo is not new. It's rooted in that history. And what's painful is that it becomes a heavy burden to President Paul Kagame. He explains that. It's painful, it's a burden because he has that humanity. Because when you are really human, you have that compassion. Just like when heroes are the ones who fought for something and they became heroes. But this is an extended genocide in that region where Rwandans found themselves because of those borders. It's as if Tutsis are wild animals or domestic animals. That you wake up one day and say, I'm going to kill this animal. And this is done under the nose of MONUSCO, the UN mission in the DRC. Even the government, the president of that country, says that these are Rwandans, they should go back where they came from. Now, Honorable Minister, different processes request that M23 dissolve and go back where they came from. Where do they go to? Congo, Rwanda? They will be exterminated if they stay in the Congo without any weapons. Now, the FDLR are not refugees. It's a terrorist organization, which is in the Congo fighting Rwanda. So there are no Rwandan refugees. Every Rwandan is free to come home. So this is a terrorist organization operating against Rwanda and spreading genocide ideology in that country. Thank you. Honorable Mukabalisa. Thank you, Speaker. I thank the Minister for his presentation that allows us to understand the situation. On January 24th, 2023, that's 2 days ago, the UN Genocide Prevention Department issued a communique by its advisor. The communique expressed serious concerns about genocidal acts in Ituri region against the Hema population. They revealed that there were mass graves, civilians being killed, and the government is doing nothing to stop those killings. It says that the genocide is about to repeat itself. History is going to repeat itself. When I read this communique, I was struck by the fact that it does not mention Congolese Tutsis who speak in Rwanda. They're not mentioned. Nowhere are they mentioned. But the genocidal acts are being committed against those Congolese Tutsis. So genocide is underway. All of us know it. The international community knows it. It's happening in the Congo, but that UN communique from the UN Genocide Prevention Mechanism does not mention it. So it means that the never again is just words. So, Honorable Speaker, so as Rwandans, we've decided to prevent genocide and to stop it. So I suggest this. The minister has requested us to do something. I suggest that we adopt a resolution as Parliament pointing out what the UN is neglecting. Our Parliament, we should condemn this genocide against Tutsis in the Congo. That's my request, and that's my wish. I want to ask the minister, why does the UN Genocide Prevention neglect, decide to not see what others are seeing, this genocide against Tutsis? And they're talking about the genocide against the Hema, which is wrong too. That genocide should not be happening. But they're not mentioning FDLR, they mention Codeco, they don't mention the genocide against Tutsis in the Congo. The UN has decided that they will never let genocide happen again. Thank you. Thank you. Honorable Muhongaire. Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I thank the Minister for that good presentation about our relations with our neighbors and what's been done to ensure that we enjoy good relationship with other countries. I also want to know this. Why does Congo evade its own problems? The first problem is the more than 130 armed groups, including foreign soldiers, the FDLR, the Congolese. But when you don't analyze your problem before, so you can find a solution, they will never be solved. The second problem they have is refugees. There are many Congolese refugees here in Rwanda and in other countries. Why doesn't the Congolese government repatriate its citizens? My colleagues have said this. There's a genocide going on in the Congo. They are killing the young, the old, women and men. I condemn them personally. In this day and age, they are committing genocide in broad daylight. Look at that hate speech, like what Leon Mugesera was doing in Rwanda about 30 years ago. They have been hosting this FDLR, people who killed Tutsis here. What they're doing in the Congo is what was done against the Tutsis here. This is what's going on in the Congo. They are protecting the FDLR, and for what? So you tell me. Do they think their collaboration with the FDLR will solve any problem in the Congo? I don't understand why they avoid tackling their own problems. And this provocation against our country, well, countries can disagree on some things, but what is done in such circumstances, they have an agreement. But Congo rejects all agreements. They sign these agreements, but they never implement them. So what do they think? How do they think they will solve these issues if they don't implement the agreements that they sign and just find scapegoats for their problems? Congo's provocation. They recently attacked, like you said during your presentation, they killed people in Kinigi. That's all they do. They collaborate with the FDLR. They should implement the agreements. I don't see why they keep refusing to implement the agreements. Over to you, Honorable Ruhakana. Thank you, Speaker. I thank the Minister for his presentation. Honorable Speaker, my colleagues have said this, but I have a few questions. Insecurity in the Congo stems from the presence of Interahamwe militia and the genocidal government that fled Rwanda with their weapons, and they kept reorganizing, trying to come back and continue the genocide. They did that since 1995 up to 2000 with the insurgency and attacks. The UN resolution of 30th November 1999, it said that the MONUC's mission was to come to an end in 2000 and should have helped the Congo to restore its security and should have helped to send those armed Rwandans to disarm and go back home, which didn't happen. And in 2010, the UN renewed its mission's mandate and gave them more men, 19,000 people, to fulfill their mission, but they didn't do anything. But the UN kept refusing to do anything about the situation. Honorable Speaker, last month they were given another mandate. What interest does the UN have in having this conflict go on? Same for the UN Security Council members. And why each time Rwanda expresses concerns, nobody listens? Within the ICGLR, International Conference of the Great Lakes region, they say that nobody listens. There's a joint force that monitors the security situation at the border in the Great Lakes. Honorable Speaker, there are no communiques. They invaded us about 6 times since 2022. So what's been done? I want to know what happened. We didn't see any communique. Honorable Speaker, it's about time that our parliament, through different platforms, to issue a communique about these problems. Recently, a Congolese MP insulted Rwanda. We read this in the papers. Others tried to speak against that, but we see the trend. They keep smearing us. We have
Murakoze ijambo ni rya Depite Rwanda.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I thank the minister for his presentation, and I assure you that I will not ask a question because I know the frustrations you have. We share your frustrations. We're asking you what we know, and you don't have a solution. So should we ask you what Tshisekedi is thinking and his friends? You don't have the solution. So let's think. Your Excellency, we're asking ourselves, why do they say all that? The international community does not get paid to accept our truth. We have to say it. We have to say our truth until the international community listens. Otherwise, we will keep saying, where are they? Why can't they see? Can't they see that Congo is a community that doesn't see that we are being invaded? They will say it until the cows come home. I urge my country, we should stop sitting by and look as Tutsis are being killed. After the Geneva Convention, all signatories say that killing people, when people get killed, every signatory should intervene. Your Excellency, no country is intervening when they see Tutsis being killed. There are signals, these hate messages, this hate speech. No country among those signatories, but nobody's saying anything. Rwanda is a signatory. We should refuse that. We should condemn it, and if need be, let Congo say something for reason. If we should protect those Tutsis, we would be doing that because there's an obligation to come to the rescue of those who are being targeted in the context of that treaty. Whether we're small, whether we don't have a lot of means, but we're not weak, we're not cowards. When these fighter jets are being shot, when they had started doing whatever they wanted, that's a good sign. Next time they will pay attention. They'll be careful. There are this Wagner who came to this region. Those are mercenaries, dangerous people. So if you see a regional country bringing Wagner here, and the international community keeps quiet because those Wagners are coming to the rescue of the Congo because of its minerals, think about that. So I want to ask my colleagues, what we see the Congo doing, we should tweet something and say, tell the whole world that what is being done in Congo is very wrong. But if we keep quiet, others will tell the story. I will not ask questions to you, Mr. Minister. Thank you, Speaker. Thank you, Speaker. I thank the Minister for his presentation. And I think people should keep trying to find more information about this crisis. The countries in this region tried to have this crisis solved, but some powerful countries interfered, including some that have played a role in the history, in the genesis of this conflict, because it has deep roots. Those arbitrary borders drawn by the colonialists, where Rwandans found themselves in what came to be known as a different country. But The minister said that the international community and some of those countries have opted to look the other way, even when they know the root cause of the conflict. So they chose to blame Rwanda for everything. If you look at Belgium, they colonized Congo, Rwanda. They played a role in drawing those borders, but they have chosen to not do anything. The French were here during the genocide. They protected the genocidal regime. They went to the Congo with them. They helped them reorganize to attack Rwanda. Like the minister has said, they keep pointing a finger at Rwanda when we don't have any responsibility in that crisis. And by not focusing on the real causes, seeking a solution to the crisis, it persists. Nobody says anything about the Congo. Madam Speaker, we've been given more information now. What should the Parliament do? If the General Assembly accepts, there should be a special commission to collect information that would help analyze this crisis. My colleagues have talked about resolutions and a communique that should be based on tangible information by that special commission. Thank you. Over to you, Honorable Murekatete. Thank you, Madam Speaker. I want to thank our country's leadership, and I thank the Minister for the information he shared with us. The Minister has clarified the history
Madame la Présidente, je pense que cela pourrait nous aider à bien analyser ce problème dans le cadre du Parlement. Comme le ministre avait posé la question, que peut faire le Parlement?
So what should the Parliament do?
Je crois qu'il nous a posé cette question. Alors,
Well, we should explain to other parliaments in the East African community and tell them the truth, show them the truth, because people are being killed in broad daylight. The minister has said this. People got killed in Kinigi, in Musanze. So, Madam Speaker, you could help us within parliamentary diplomacy so we can explain to other parliaments. The minister could help us in that exercise for people to fully understand this situation. Thank you, Madam Speaker. Honorable Worker. Thank you, Madam Speaker. I thank the Minister for his presentation. Madam Speaker, I want to focus on the international community. And I want to clarify, I want to name names. Those who decided to be bystanders while they are the ones who created problems. Belgium, That neighboring country was called Belgian Congo. It was King Leopold's property. That's why it was called Belgian Congo. Rwanda and Burundi were different. Those are the ones who drew those borders. They know exactly the borders that pre-existed the current borders. They know how these populations find themselves on that territory. The Congolese know the truth. They're not idiots. They know it. But the international community just looks on as people get killed, being burnt down, their body parts get eaten. But I think those international community members should answer questions. But tell me, who can require the international community to give answers? Because they are the ones who created the problem. The Convention about Refugees say that refugees should not be settled close to the border. The FDLR were settled at the border with Rwanda. We need to think harder about why they were allowed to stay at the border. The Congolese who are here are in Kirehe, others are very far from the border. So Rwanda respected those conventions. We need to understand the reasons behind that. But if you can just say that M23 are Tutsis, they should go to Rwanda. Well, do they leave the Congo and leave their land? How is that possible? So we need to understand what's behind all this. Congo's provocation, I recently heard a Congolese saying, he was speaking French, saying Rwanda is a crybaby. They keep, but between Rwanda and the Congo, vis-a-vis the international community, we are very powerful. It's like saying that the choice is clear. So the Congolese are saying that because the international community has decided to keep quiet when they are the ones who created this problem, and they should be the ones to solve it. So that's what I wanted to say about the international community. The French are the ones who armed the FDLR. Aren't they the ones who took them where they're at today? I have a problem with that international community. Thank you, Madam Speaker. Thank you, Madam Speaker. I thank the Minister. I thank the country's leadership. We also thank the Rwanda security forces who protect the sovereignty of our country and support what the others have said, that the Parliament should do something about this. I'll give an example. Rwanda's self-sufficiency. Madam Speaker, the RDF or security forces have the capacity. We should also do something in terms of parliamentary diplomacy. Madam Speaker, it's Congo's role. You've mentioned different processes, Nairobi, Rwanda, because everything is happening inside that country, but they have signed something. Even though they decide to not implement it, the Congo should be asked about what they have signed. The whole world should hold them accountable. I'll give you one example. The East African community, They signed an agreement and then they bring in mercenaries. Why doesn't the East African community hold them accountable?
kongo ibyo yasinyiye kuki batayibaza ibyo bintu byose uruhare rwa kongo rero rukwiye gusobanuka neza tukarwandika neza niba tutashaka kuruvuga.
Congo's role should be clarified. If they don't talk about their responsibility, we should be saying it for them. As a parliament, Rwandan parliament, we should condemn this genocide being carried out in the Congo. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Yakoze ijambo ni irya Depite Mukamana Elizabeth.
Ndabashimiye nyakubahwa perezida w'umutwe wa depite kandi nanjye ndashimira nyakubahwa minisita ku kiganiro yaduhaye kandi akaduha amakuru ku kimiterere y'iki kibazo cyo muri Kongo. Ndanashima cyane ko u Rwanda rubanye neza n'ibihugu bigize EAC uretse Kongo aho.
Et donc la RDC qui pointe du doigt. So DRC is pointing, is always accusing Rwanda. And there are so many countries that support DRC, knowing very well that it is not the truth, especially the UN. And therefore, we can conclude that they do it on purpose. They know what they're doing. So the 3 times, for example, military jet of DRC has overflown or violated the Rwandan space knowingly as a provocation. So I think we should set up a commission, the committee or special committee that was suggested. But I want the minister to give us the government's point of view. What does the government plan to do? Or what do they suggest? I know you have done a lot, but now since Congo is continues to lie more and more blatantly, provoke us, what should we do? Or what do you think we should do? Also, what are you doing as regards on the information front? On the information front, because we have to correct what is being done. We have to counter those lies. Thank you. Thank you. Musa Fazil Harimana, you have the floor, your honor. Honorable Harimana. Thank you very much, madam. Thanks, Minister Biruta. You were very clear, but I also want to thank the government for the prudence with which our problematic neighbor has been afflicting us. I want to thank our army because, you know, when we were children, when we were learning about being courageous, sometimes they would draw a line, a red line. Well, this is a red line. There was a red line, let's say. So one was, if you cross this line, I will be angry. If you cross the red one, I'll break your head. This is what we used to say. I broke your head. Well, we never broke our heads. It was a game. But still, I was struck by this children's game. So I think this is the first line. And I think the next line should be the red line, whereby that red line, if crossed, action should follow. So I'm glad to see that you warned them. I told them about the red line, and then you acted. this is good. So I think I support the committee, our special committee we should set up. There were, do you remember during the genocide, the Congolese army was already involved. So we should look at that, because the genocide criminals went to Congo, continues the genocide, their genocide there, and they continue to be supported by the government, just as they were supported in Rwanda during the genocide. So, Minister, we don't have much time left, but tell us something about the Governor Nshimiyimana, who led the attack on Kinigi. I think he's now dead in Rutshuro. Then there is Rugaravu, who was also killed in Nyamuragira Forest. Then Major Sanzimana, alias Futa, who was also killed in Jomba. I think, and obviously these are officers, and there were others, there were some other soldiers who also killed. But there were M23 people who were led by Pastor Nyonzima. What does Congo say? Do they say that it's a lie? Or do they say it's Rwanda that has encouraged those people? What do they say about these proofs? Thank you. Thank you for your questions, suggestions. And I want the minister to respond. Thank you, Madam Speaker. I thank the ministers the MPs who gave ideas. A few had questions, but it was mainly contributions, and it shows that we all agree on this issue, and that we should help each other work together to find a solution. I think the honorables who spoke had the same concern, so I may not need to answer each individual question. Let me answer overall. Where the cooperation between the genocidal criminals and Rwanda, or rather the DRC forces, it's not a secret. Just as soon as they signed the agreement, instead of going back to implement what was agreed, they have signed for, they hurried back home to gather more forces, including FDLR, or gather more forces, give them more power, and set them out to go and do their dirty work. One deputy, I was asking, what about the UN? Well, UN is in Congo. There are very many there. Therefore, I think 20,000 peacekeeping forces, so and so. All these things are happening before their eyes, in front of their eyes. It's no secret. They know where everything is, everywhere, who kills who was in those meetings, who had, who plotted what with whom. And I think they've decided that it doesn't matter. They just record and send reports. I don't think it occurs to them now to act. Their mandate was to act, but they didn't act. Force Intervention Brigade fought M23. They fought them 10 years ago, and they defeated them with all the, the associated forces. And they never made a report saying, oh, there is another armed group that we are going to fight like we did for M23. Never. FDLR, all these forces, they are armed, they do all these things in front of the UN's nose. They do nothing. Other international organizations, NGOs, and so on, and they know. What we know is the same as they know. So then, let me add to what Honorable Mukabalisa said about the UN body that is in charge of genocide prevention. The 24th declaration, the one you mentioned on 24th, was about the genocide of the Hema. That was the second. There was a previous one that explained clearly what is happening to those poor Hema and the genocide committed against them. And they were very clear that it was a genocide. So the person who's in charge of genocide prevention, at least that person is working. They had two statements or declarations. They do reports, but actually the previous report also mentioned those of across our border. They did the report. Now, I don't know what they do about the report, but really, I think the person who did the survey or the report covered also the two instances of genocide. So that's something that we should pursue. But in general, overall, the international community is not doing much. You may hear tomorrow a statement about that Sukhoi flight or plane, and there may be some parliament that decides that Rwanda has acted wrong. Maybe there are some things that they consider to be normal and nothing to do about that. And there are other cases where they think you have to act. I don't know. But you know, we are not just going to let these people, to let this thing go on like that. We're going to act. We begin by speaking, begin by talking, exposing the situation. So I think Parliament should decide to act on what has been suggested. Let me say this. The responsibility to protect those who are suffering from genocide is incumbent on us, and we have always acted to protect those who are persecuted. That's one point. We will act. Second, our ambassador has been expelled. What do we do? Because we have neighbors, a neighbor who does not want relations with us. We are ready to continue our relations with them, but they have to follow principles and values. We cannot do it alone. So for example, a country that is persecuting its own people, killing its own people, is the one that is guilty. We did not recall our ambassador But because we hope that some understanding will be come to, but we didn't recall him. He was expelled. We cannot take him back by force. Time will come, I'm sure, when this will be resolved. You remember that President Lorenzo of Angola was asked by the African Union to look into this issue, and it's under his aegis that the Rwanda meeting was held. We hope that at some stage relations will improve. As regards these provinces of Rwanda that were moved to Congo by colonial times, you know that we all agreed on the intangibility of borders, of colonial borders, as we call them. Really, the main point is not that the border should be here or over there, or that we should restore the borders, because, I mean, it's everywhere. It's everywhere. Problem is everywhere. In the Great Lakes, we have this problem of, the colonial heritage, of tribalism and so on. But there is a situation in every country in Africa. But the problem is not really the border. Our people could be across the border, continue to have the culture of the country across, but continue to be a good citizen of their country. That's not the problem. The problem actually is that tribalism was promoted by the colonial powers. Ethnic this, ethnic that, these belong to this ethnic group. And it became an obsession with these people. So that this situation caused the genocide in Rwanda and went on to move it to Congo. Because there are other countries where you have groups, tribes, ethnic groups, and so on, and there is no genocide. Here it is because that was weaponized, let's say. It was weaponized for the purpose of divide et impera and promoting their own benefits. It was weaponized. That's the problem. But ethnic groups are everywhere. Borders cut through, ethnic groups and tribes, and nothing happens. It's the same in every country. Another problem is those documents that are signed. They are signed, but nobody does anything about them. They continue to blame Rwanda only. This is what they do. They have, it's this blame game, but they know. They know. And they know that what they say is wrong. But, by the way, the statement by that I was talking about, Rwanda, that has been misunderstood. It has been misunderstood. First of all, FRDC is not to replace M23. East African Community Forces should replace or take the place where M23 has moved out of. And there are many other things in that statement. FDLR is mentioned. Congolese refugees are mentioned. Various, the need for political dialogue is also mentioned. So people sort of, the politicians in Congo take just one aspect and they spin that. They spin that so that, they mislead everyone, and they are followed by those who are supporting them of the international community, who applaud them and, go on spinning that, and that's a problem. because there is a calendar for everything. Every decision has a timetable. The refugee repatriation has a timetable, all those things. And even M23 has moved back, has pulled back, as it says in the statement. They have. But the other aspects that had to be agreed on have not moved. Nothing has happened. You know, the DRC people, you know, the MPs, the politicians, they do it on purpose, just to confuse, just to spin it out of shape, so that people are confused and don't know what to do. The statement is clear. M23 has its responsibilities. There are very many responsibilities for the government, many responsibilities for other forces. And in fact, the DRC has the longest list of obligations, but DRC is not doing what it's supposed to do. In fact, it now seems that everybody else has duties, not DRC, unfortunately. But they are not supervising the agreement. They are not supervising the agreement. They now pretend that they are the ones who supervise everything, but it seems that there are very many in the international community who also pretend to believe that Congo is there to implement the agreement, and their second role is to curse Rwanda left, right, and center. Okay. Now, I think from the other points that were raised, you remember that in 1990, a contingent of the Congolese army came to support the Interahamwe and XFAR. They were there, 1990. A contingent came to support the XFAR against RPF. But at that time, the genocide ideology was already there. Now, Honorable Barikana asked a question about governance in DRC. Well, there is governance problems. There's also sometimes, a poor understanding of their responsibility towards the people. They don't really look to helping the people. Congo is a very big country. There is no reason why they should be saying, oh, this small group is not, it doesn't belong to the country. In fact, no, they should look for more people because the country is underpopulated. You see, they should be happy that there are all these other people who are there. They should integrate them and get them to build the country, because it's a country that is underpopulated, rich in resource, underpopulated. But they have no understanding of governance, of the responsibility of the leaders to their people. Honorable Mukajire, you also asked a question about what we're doing. You heard that there are also Congolese refugees who are explaining the situation. I mean, the refugees who came recently. But you see, the genocide ideology is so entrenched that it is very difficult for the people to accept that there is a problem of refugees, because the people have been so brainwashed that they don't see these people as refugees who are in Rwanda or in other countries. You see, there are people who are going to see them, to visit them. They will, of course, show the people who have been removed from their land and properties by M23. these are, of course, it's very sad, but there are few refugees, very few, compared to the thousands who are here, compared to the thousands who are in Uganda, the thousands who are in Uganda, in Burundi, even in Congo, or rather, sorry, in Kenya. So if it's Banyamulenge, if it's Banyamasisi, if it's Bahema who die, it's like it doesn't matter. What does matter is that these people have lost their property. You understand? There are people that M23 killed. People were killed. 200. They say 250. But eventually they say that it was maybe around 50. But anyway, whatever the number, people died. And from that day, it was in a place called Kishishe. From that day, they even found their names, the names of those people. But the others invented numbers, 250, 350, whatever. But these last massacres, nobody was cited, no name. It's like it doesn't matter. Like it doesn't matter. Bahema, Banyamulenge, Banyamasisi, the Tutsi, it doesn't, nobody cares. No names, no numbers of people who have died. It's like it's okay for them to be killed. It doesn't matter. So I think we should really make an effort, not keep quiet, speak the truth about what is happening, and so that these people are not completely ignored as if they didn't exist. Honorable Heziman, you say something about M23 that started their war not from Rwanda. They didn't attack or start their war from Rwanda. No. DRC is always citing Rwanda for political expediency. It is not because they don't know. It's not because we didn't show them that the number of refugees who came here are all still there. Because we have lists of them. None of them has gone anywhere. But they are using this period to badmouth Rwanda, and maybe it has to do with the elections at the end of the year, or maybe something else. But they are determined to spoil relations. There was a question as to why should we, why isn't DRC respecting the rights of its local people? Well, I'm sure it was an academic question. Your answer is as good as mine. The person who said that their jets are allowed to fly over the border. But it's not the problem. There are laws. They just, there are laws. A military plane that comes without asking for permission, a second, a third time, you warn them, and then they say, oh, well, they say, no, it's not us. When you saw them and you warn them that there are consequences, and a third time, of course, they will not say that. They will say that they are allowed to, but there are no laws that allow a plane, whether military or not, to overfly somebody else's territory, airspace. Well, you ask them. There are rules. Rules. You send your flight path. You say, please, can we overfly this and that and the other? It happens. It happens. But if it's a country that you have been insulting, that you have been accusing, that you have been provoking, and now you dare or provoke them with your military plane, and then you say, oh, it's something that happens. We sort of turn around before we land. We have an incursion in Rwanda. Well, there are consequences. Now, as to they're threatening us, saying that they will come to Kigali. Well, if they come to Kigali, of course they will be received appropriately. Regarding the relationship between Congo, the army, and those in Interahamwe, we've covered it. Now, the fact that Tshisekedi said that he wants to cause to do a coup d'etat in Rwanda. Well, he didn't say that. He didn't say that. I'm sure he had a name and an objective, but I think we shouldn't fear that as he will not succeed. But what he did was to make it clear that he intends to do it. So I think maybe, I don't know what the international community is waiting for, to call them to order and tell them that they had better respect the Rwanda agreement. Somebody asked why the Rwandans are persecuted when the other peoples at the borders who have relatives across all the other 5 borders or 4, why are they not persecuted? Well, sometimes Congo is encouraged also by others. You've seen, for example, what was said when that flight was shot. And the person who said it, he said he's right. Congo, you have, to pamper them, excuse them, pet them, but you have to come down hard on Rwanda. It is a habit. I don't know why. But anyway, let them talk. Let them talk. They should, really the most useful thing to do is for them to do an examination of conscience and remember what they did to this region, how they caused all these problems. And I think maybe it will be more profitable to talk to us and talk with us instead of insulting us all the time. Every day, they insult us, every day. It is the wrong policy. It is a useless and wrong policy. By the way, Madam Speaker, you should know that they are not looking for peace of the region. They are looking for economic benefits, the economic reasons, but it's not for the good of the people of a region. It's just resources, natural resources. And maybe apparently, sometimes they think that Rwanda will go to Congo to exploit their resources. Well, it's been a long time since they've been exploiting these resources. They started ages ago, and they exploit those resources. And nobody is asking, for centuries now, and nobody is asking them to be accountable. And they say it's Rwanda that might go there and maybe get some resources. So sometimes they think they should support the country, Congo, that is, it's not so difficult. It doesn't demand anything. They just let them do what they want. Okay, fine. Well, let them get on with Congo. If Congo gives them what they want, that's their problem. But it doesn't mean that they should harass us. Why are they harassing us? And they always say, when you ask them, they say, oh, we have other principles. Well, there are no principles. It's just greed. Just greed for resources. Anyway, so it is a very good idea to suggest such a special commission, that they should do some research, that they should also, we should also make these people know that we know what they are up to, that we are not naive, and we know what they want. Honorable Mukabarisa, I think I've already answered you. Honorable Muhangaire, there are more than 130 armed group. She said something about the refugees also, but she was commenting, it wasn't a question. As regards the ICGLR, the Great Lakes organization, they have a verification mechanism that is there to check, for example, who crossed what border, who shot where, like when they shot those bombs, the Kinigi, bombed Kinigi. This organization is always recording that. They do a survey, they make reports. But I don't think they are biased, really, no. But the UN group of experts, that's something else. That's something else. CPGL is okay, it's normal. So this UN group, they come, when they see us, they discuss all the issues, M23, but then afterwards, their survey, it says that their survey has shown that these shots were shot from east-west, and therefore it was from Rwanda. The direction with the shot. But when there are shots and even bombs flying on Rwanda, they say, oh, sorry, we were not able to determine the direction. Don't know where it came from. And they write it. But for the rest, they say, oh, it was flying, and there was flying from east-west, and somebody was wearing a hat that looks like the hat or the casque or the hat of the Rwandan army in Mozambique. We saw a guy in Mozambique who was wearing something like that. And so M23 was wearing a uniform that looks a bit like the one that Rwandan army uses. But they don't show the photos. Nothing in the photos. Because whenever you see photos of this group, they wear all kinds of uniforms. DRC, whatever, of course, they wear a uniform wherever they find them. No, they are always looking for anything at all that they can twist and distort to look like they have proof against Rwanda. Or we saw an army crossing the border. Okay, we say, but who are these? But in fact, it was a river in Congo. And, or maybe sometimes there isn't even a river. They say a river, but there is no river. Or they say, sometimes they have a small paragraph here in the executive summary where you say, there are these problems. It looks like they are going to be objective, but when you read the body of the report, it's all about accusing Rwanda and never mentioning FDLR, never mentioning their cooperation with the DRC forces, never. This is the root of the problem, and all the problems, including all the terrorist groups, stem from that source. But they never mention it. So this is a big issue. DRC is always the victim. Poor DRC, always the victim. And they never I recognize that he's the one that has, accepted, the genocide army, that they support them, that they arm them, they protect them, and then work with them, cooperate with them. So many millions of dollars to support. I think they call it peacekeeping or disarmament and so on. You don't know where that money goes, and so on. A second, nobody ever holds anybody accountable, including those who've been there using this money and never making any progress. No accountability. Anyway, you people, you should understand one thing. When you say international community, it's like that. There are powerful countries that favor one side, and whatever one side is supported, where the others keep quiet or have to align. And when they have decided that one country is wrong and is responsible, responsible to everything. That's how it works. Killing anyone, whether the Tutsi of Congo or others, should not be assumed or taken as something normal, unimportant. Hate speech should not be tolerated. By the way, have you seen a statement about somebody, a statement, I think by the UN, some other body, who said there is hate speech on both sides. What both sides? You have never seen anything that says that the Rwandan side has hate speech. And then we ask them, but what do you mean both sides? I say, we don't want to upset Congo, poor Congo, that's, it's a poor country, victim, and so on. But if you have a genocide or hate speech, you cannot say you saw it on both sides. You find people in DRC, there is somebody being killed and somebody killing them. You cannot have a genocide if there is no one targeted and no one targeting that targeted group. So they can't even say genocide. There are many people who don't say genocide. For example, during the commemoration, they always look for other words, very sort of roundabout, because they don't say the genocide against the Tutsi. Because, I mean, if it's on both sides, how can it be a genocide? Well, that is, the definition of genocide, a targeted group and the group, usually the government, targeting them. Okay, so I think the other issues were discussed, the genocide ideology, and so on. I think these are things that the committee that you want to set up, special committee, you should set up the committee, and we, of course, will support you with expertise or data, news and updates, that we can do it. We can support you in all ways that you wish to be supported. Fine? No. As regards, by the way, we forget that there were very many agreements. Addis Ababa Agreement, Sun City. It's not just these last ones, but they sign and that's the end. They don't implement anything. And lately, there were many other meetings. There was a meeting in New York. Do you remember? There was a meeting in Qatar that had been planned. But usually it is Congo that asked for those meetings. And at the last minute, like in Qatar, they just, they didn't go. In New York, the French organized, Congo and Rwanda. And after that, there was a statement in the Assembly, UN General Assembly, where he said the opposite of what he had been talking about, the very opposite of peace. The very opposite. But this is how it is. No, it is. They never respect any commitment. Their word is given so easily and broken even easier. And for example, they go to France and they ask for mediation. We accept. They have mediation. We agree on a certain thing. And then, 1 hour later, they go, they insult us before the world. But I think some of these are delaying tactics. Maybe they are preparing for something. I don't know. Or the war, because they say, you've heard, all of you, that the DRC foreign minister, I think, was 17. He was saying that they renounced Rwanda, or rather Rwanda and Nairobi, that is the agreements, and they want to prepare a war. So, okay, you have mercenaries, and then you have supporters of all sorts, and you have all kinds of preparations for war, apparently. But I think they prefer war. That's what I think. I think they prefer war. Okay, so I think I've answered all the questions. Somebody had a question about groups, Rudrunana and so on. So these groups do exist. The DRC president himself said at one time the FDLR doesn't exist, either they've gone home or they have died, but they are still dying now. So who is dying? We had colonels, majors, they are actual armed, structurally, competently organized as private armies, let's say. But the peacekeeping forces, they live with them. They live with them. They support them. They are supposed to fight to oppose terrorist groups, but they work with them. Anyway, I don't know what name I can even give the mess. It's a mess. And UN will never do anything positive because they themselves are causing the mess. Thank you, Madam. Thank you, Mr. Minister. Thank you. I think those explanations are good. There is somebody else who wants to take the floor on a third list.
Madam Speaker, nagira ngo mbanze nshimira Minister.
I want to thank the Minister for his reply. We hope that sorry. I think you are going on other subjects. Can you please leave out what you have started? I was going to talk about Uganda and Somalia and so on. Okay, no. Let me come back to DRC. I think the relations with Uganda are improving. And so I was asking about smuggling. I think this week there was a bit of smuggling. This causes, bad relations between the two countries, bad vibes, let's say. Can you say something about how to protect our good relations with Uganda? Because there are these people, who move from one country to another, and so usually cause a bad atmosphere.
hari ikibazo cyabaye cy'umuturage warasiwe ku mupaka yambutse amagendu.
Somebody was shot at the border. They were trying to import something fraudulously. But such occurrences do exist. Fraud, cross-border crime. But those ones were trying to bring in fraud, when they were trafficking into illegal products. It would have been better for them to stop, but those are criminals who also carry traditional weapons, ready to fight anybody. What's important is that there should be cooperation between local leaders at the district level or at the provincial level. Even when there's a mistake, then it's examined and then people are held accountable. It shouldn't result into bad relationships between countries like we've seen in the past. But because of the good relationship with Uganda, such incident cannot derail our good relationship. So those institutions are doing their job. There's an investigation to find out what went wrong, and those responsible will eventually be held responsible. But those are criminals who are armed, and sometimes they fight our security forces. But there's a framework where we can discuss about such things. Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. We thank you, and we thank the MPs who asked questions, and we thank them for having suggested a few things, including the Parliament's resolution condemning the genocide against Congolese Tutsis. Others saying that we should tell the truth openly and as often as possible, and a special commission that was suggested to deepen this situation, this crisis, or even talk with our colleagues in the context of parliamentary diplomacy. And there are other MPs who spoke after that proposal, supporting the creation of such a commission, so they could shed more light about the prevailing situation to inform all our discussions. The minister said it's within Parliament's capacity. So the part of the resolution is that very resolution, main resolution, and others that stem from it, and that would come from that commission if you accept its creation. Is unanimous? Yes. Thank you, Honorable Vice Presidents, Honorable MPs, and after that resolution, it's not something we can adopt in this General Assembly. We want us as the Bureau to refine this and bring a proposal that we will submit to you, the members of such commission, its mandate. All that is something we cannot do here. If you allow, we, the Bureau, will go and work on it. Another decision we want to discuss, which is the last point for this special term, there's another resolution we need to refine and for you to approve. So do you give us 15 days mandatory for a special term? So we will end this special term once the General Assembly has adopted this. Thank you very much, Vice Presidents. Thank you very much, Honorable Deputies. Now we've come to the end of today's session. The next session will be announced in the coming days. And I thank you very much. Thank the Honorable Foreign Minister and his team for what they have shared with us. So our cooperation, our collaboration will continue as usual to have enough information that will help in our action as the Parliament within the parliamentary diplomacy and within cooperation between our country and others. Thank you. So we will communicate with you about the next General Assembly. Thank you. Good night.